Hi again, everybody. This is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different niches, different backgrounds, and different experiences to find out what their high performance techniques are, some of their backstory so that we can apply those to ours where it makes sense. And also, there's people have made big moves in their niche, whatever that happens to be, and just kind of work through some of the things that would be of importance to any of the people here. We talk to really cool people from um, athletes to business people to CEOs. And today we have a really cool treat. We're going to talk to a rocket scientist, which is neat in itself. So we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. One thing that we do have to kind of talk to at the front end is that a lot of organizations are getting ready to do some hiring right now because things are starting to open up a little bit. If you're a small or mid-sized business, as you know, if you've listened to the podcast a few times, that we have a relationship with Jazz HR, and they're an applicant tracking system that can help you manage that process. And it does everything where it will send out to all the job platforms your role and help you keep track of that internally. So if it's something that you're interested in, just go to our website, which is www.bigideabigmoves.com. And there's a link on there. Take a look at it, see if it makes sense for you. And the folks at Jazz HR will kind of help work through that with you. The other one is Epitome HR is doing the other side of things where they often do work with organizations about how to get the best talent. So they're actually helping people with some career coaching right now. So they have a couple of packages on there to help you get your LinkedIn profiles ready, looked at your resume, and then also help you kind of see what applicant tracking systems do on the other side so that you can make sure you get your best shot at being able to put your best foot forward in a new role. So, so take advantage of that. Again, same website, www.bigideabigmoves.com, and they'll be able to help you. So this is really kind of interesting for me because Bianca Cefalo is a systems thermal product manager at Airbus Defence and Space, working on thermal management solutions for next generation telecommunication spacecraft. She's a graduate in aerospace and aeronautics engineering. She's driven space technology innovation and contributed to the delivery of commercial space missions and things such as the InSight's Mars mission, which is really cool. Hopefully we can talk about that a little bit today. She's a STEM consultant. She's a space advocate, a youth mentor, and an international speaker. She's done a lot of things. You'll be seeing her around all the time now, and we're lucky to have her today. And people usually say, you know, it's not rocket science when they're trying to make something that seems simple and maybe relatable. And I think today what you'll find is I think Bianca's great at making something that is pretty complex, but making it very relatable. So so thanks very much for joining us today, Bianca. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for the first of all for the invitation and then the introduction. That was really cool.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's pretty much it sums up when your last statement about it's not
yeah,
rocket science. So we are used to look at rocket science as something that is first of all very far away from us, very unapproachable.
yeah,
Even so, I'll give you this example. Anytime someone is asking me, so what do you do? And I go, I'm a rocket scientist. They are like, you're joking.
yeah, yeah. They would automatically think that, right? Yeah,
Yeah, like they're joking. And I'm like, why would I be joking? And they would go on like, you don't look like a rocket scientist. I've never, look at a woman looking like you and thinking, oh, she's doing some rocket science stuff. So from this point, I've actually realized probably later in the later stage of my career as well, that it's so very important to give visibility not only to the projects that I work on, which are extremely close to our own reality. So if you think about telecommunication satellites, this is something that we couldn't live without. Otherwise, we wouldn't have internet,
yeah,
first of all. And the second, it's so very much important to give visibility to women. And I'm not only even talking about women, to different personalities and characters that are not really stereotyped as the scientist or the engineer or all these kind of characters that you will look at them and think, oh, they're probably working into fashion or in music or production or whatever, because that's a very, very old fashioned stereotype. They would think that you need to look like some kind of Einstein that you've seen in
Yeah.
your history books.
Yeah.
And then only if you look like that and if you have that kind of style, lifestyle that is so ingrained into our own beliefs, then you can actually be successful into some kind of scientific or STEM environment. And they couldn't be more wrong. So this is where, I realized that my passion for engineering was going beyond my job, my daily job.
Yeah.
It's become more of a mission, not only for the instruments and for the technology that I'm providing together with other teams, but as a really to smash the stereotype, or to, let's say, to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's really interesting that you've said that, because I think, and I think of most people growing up, had that kind of stereotype in their head around, and I wonder how many people, you know, self-selected themselves out of even having that possibility early on. And I know that's something that you're kind of fighting to change. But maybe before we get into that, how did it, like for you, because you did take that career path and now you're trying to help change that, but how did you get where you are now, knowing that it's a pretty or has been a pretty kind of traditional environment to get into as well?
Yeah, so my path is, I love talking about the story, which I managed to own again, where I was way more self-confident.
Yeah,
Because everyone can think, first of all, that becoming a scientist or getting into high education, such as aerospace engineering, is for someone who belongs to an elitist group, because it's expensive, because it's niche, because it's very, very peculiar. I didn't come, I'm not coming, I wasn't coming from a privileged background. So no one in my family was an engineer. No one even had high education at all. So coming from a small town in the south of Italy, and then having worked across the world in Germany and the UK and so forth. So it is a pretty powerful story to tell, that if I made it happen, everyone can make it happen. So how I started with my passion was really looking at what my dad would do. He was a mechanic. So I would spend my time in the garage with him, playing with the spare parts and all sorts of things. And this is where my passion started. So
yeah,
I was probably 7 years old, and I had no idea, no one had any idea about engineering and stuff. But what I really liked was seeing how my dad was passionate about this job. And I, first of all, thought, I really like what he does, and I really like the passion and how he's happy doing this. And I was, first of all, I want to get into a job that will make me look happy as
yeah.
much as he is every day. So that was the first thing. And that's the second. The second one was, I'm definitely not going to work into a garage all my life, but
Yeah,
what can I do to work on
that
technology?
combines the two.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This kind of evolution from what my dad was doing, that also for his background and his family couldn't go into higher education. So he was very honest about it, and he said, I couldn't access, for financial reason or any other reason, this kind of resources, and I want you to get on and do whatever you want, even if it is aerospace engineering. And that was the statement.
Wow.
Yeah, so
It's
it
interesting that it's your dad that kind of really triggered that for you. That's fantastic.
Yes, exactly. And that was probably something that also as a family as a whole, we've always been very unconventional. And having had a childhood where, again, I wasn't privileged, I really struggled financially during my education, because my family business became dramatically. So I had to start working. I was working in the afternoon, going to classes in the morning, borrowing books, studying at night. So that was pretty harsh. But at the same time, the push that I had from my family, because they couldn't get through that education, and seeing me, especially my dad, being the first child, because I have a younger brother, the first child, a woman. He never saw me as, in the category of a woman, so you must get married and you must, be the woman at home. It never saw me like that. He saw me since the very beginning as an equal. You can do whatever you want. So if you like playing around with cars, then you should do it on a racetrack. So this is how I started, and watching Formula One during the Sunday lunch, and then getting into more documentary about aerodynamics and all the really into the technical. I was very curious. I was very nerd when I was a child. Still am. I realized, okay, this is really what I would like to do in the future. But then what do I need to do as an education? What do I need to study to get there? So very simple search. Google is our friend. I went onto the Federico II University that is in Naples, which is actually one of the best for aerospace engineering
Mhm.
after all. And I went to check really the programs, different things that I could possibly study so that I could become an expert in aerodynamics, for instance. And that was aerospace engineering. So I said, okay, done. I've decided. I was a teenager when I was at high school when I already knew that I wanted to become an aerospace engineer.
Wow.
And everyone looked at me like you were crazy.
Well, you probably were a little bit.
I still am.
But that's a good thing. So,
So, yeah.
no, I was just gonna say, so that like in order to do that, I mean, to have all of those possibilities that maybe at this point there's been nothing that really kind of pushed back on you to kind of do that. Did you find as you kind of went into that course and all that, did things look different, like because there you probably were in a minority even there in being able to be a female that didn't fit that stereotype? Did you start seeing that even when you were in school?
Yeah, so I started seeing that even before I got into aerospace
Mm,
engineering,
yeah.
because I've always been one of those bright students. I didn't have money, but I had the brains. So I was one of those that's I just pick up a topic and I could talk and elaborate about that topic. And it could be from mathematics to philosophy and history. I loved studying. This is what I would do, the hard work and really spending nights studying something, even English. I'm not a native English speaker. I didn't learn English at school. I learned it from videos, YouTube's MTV at the time when I was a child. I learned it because I knew it was a tool that would allow me to open up my horizons, and it would be necessary for me in the future. So I loved studying. I loved being a bright child because I knew that I was lacking on other resources. So somehow I also had to prove that I was good at something. Really, as a child, I
Yeah.
had this thing. I had to prove that I was good at something. And this was really the drive that made me go throughout my early years at school, but also when I realized the big resistance that I found from the culture,
Hmm.
the society around me. Because when I said I want to be an aerospace engineer, now coming from the background where financially you are not pretty much there,
Yep.
you were not into this club of engineers, doctors, or whatever. You were a woman coming from the south of Italy, small town. Why the heck will you want to be an aerospace engineer? For me, people would tell me, even neighbors, everyone, they would tell me, you have no chance. There's no chance for you to become successful, to even go through the engineering career. Are you sure? Don't you think it's too difficult for you? So I started getting all this feedback from any sorts of people, even especially the ones that they had never done anything in their life, but they felt like they needed to give me an opinion.
So how did you get
So
through that? Like, how did I mean, if you consistently are getting that kind of negative, or even if there's some that you can kind of push to the side, I mean, I'm sure there are people that you trusted their opinions that were also saying that too. So how did you get past that?
absolutely. For me, that was even more of a motivation because for me, it became like a provocation. So you were telling me I can't do these for this reason that you think are relevant for
Yeah.
me to become a successful person in this field. I'm going to prove each and every one of you wrong. So that was my drive. This is what I had to do it for myself, for
Yep.
my family as well, for all for everything they've sacrificed for me to become the person I am today. But now, looking back to the future, for all the other girls that have been told that have been pushed down by family, by friends, by neighbors, to make them understand that you can prove everyone wrong. Because if that's your calling, whatever you want to do, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be a dancer, you want to be the next pop star. If anyone is telling you you can't do something, now it is your duty to do it and show them how to do.
Yeah. Now, for you then, when you did get your first role, um, and you know, I'm sure there have been times where, okay, you're put on a project and you kind of, maybe it was your first one or first couple, you go into a room. I'm sure in that room, it's exactly that, where you're having to probably prove yourself maybe even a little more than everybody else because of those things we just talked about. And that probably isn't the most diverse boardroom or project room that you could be in. Um, how did you excel in that environment? Because you have excelled. How have you built that over time?
So I can tell about two different experiences.
Yeah.
So it's, you probably won't believe that my first experience wasn't as uh, was very diverse, because since my very first project, I was 23 years old and I was still studying for my master's degrees when there was this opportunity in Germany. Because I've always been a very annoying person, meaning I would ask anyone if they had opportunities, if they knew someone that needed an intern, or someone that would work on that project, because I really wanted to move away from my country and experience something different, really work on a big project. So, being the annoying person that I was and I still am, I got my first role when I was still studying, and I was in Berlin, and it was for the NASA project, the Insight Mars mission.
Yeah.
So I was hired as the aerothermal fluid dynamic analyst, the only European female to work on that project. And that freaked me out. I was extremely proud of myself, but at the same time, in 2 weeks, I packed up my bag, left my country, my family, everyone, moved to a country where I didn't know anyone. My first project was a NASA project, and I had to learn the language and everything. So when I got there, I found an extremely supportive community, because all of them were all coming from my same situation. They were all experts, let's say. There were people from India, Iran, Spain, Portugal, Poland, from everywhere. And it was very, very diverse and inclusive. There was actually 50-50 female and male.
Wow.
So
Great.
yeah, Germany was great. It's absolutely great for that. And because it was a small company, a small consultancy company to which the German Space Agency had outsourced this kind of project, this instrument. So it was really like a family for me. And I still have my ex-colleagues now are my best friends. One of those was my partner at the time.
Yeah.
So it's great. And even with the CEO and the CTO, and now one of the co-founders has become later in this year is my best friend. And at the time, he even worked for me. So the dynamic was so great, and we were all coming from the same issues that we really supported each other. So it's true that I was freaking out. It was an amazing project, and I had to prove my worth because I was still a student at the time. But having that diversity really helped me going through lots of different emotional breakdown, let's say. Also, having the first experience being away from everyone, staying there then for the next 5 years was so fantastic to have that kind of environment. But then when I moved to London, that was when I really realized I was the only woman in the boardroom. And that was quite of a shock for me, because I was the only under 30 in a boardroom of Airbus Defence and Space, and I was the only product manager female. And I said, wow, that's great. It means that my worth again my input is valuable. And I never really felt like a minority, to be honest. Clearly I was the only woman there, but again, I never felt like people were trying to put me down because I was a woman and I was the youngest. If anything, it was the opposite. They've always been very extremely helpful, and any questions I had, they would support me. So I must say that it is true for people that are probably not ready to take on those responsibilities. It may look intimidating at the beginning, but then when you get there, when you get your foot in the door, you may be so surprised about how many supportive people you have around. And this is the main thing that I really want to say. People, especially women, young women, tend to go for higher roles or more responsibilities when they feel 120% ready.
Right.
That's not true, because no one is ever 100% ready. And also, you learn a lot on the job. We never know what to do. Every day we are facing different challenges, especially in terms of emotional roller coaster and soft skills and leadership and
Yeah.
management and the co-worker here and there. But once you get there, because you will get there, even if you don't feel 100% ready, then you will find that many other people in that environment, even, senior management, they still don't feel ready, and yet they are there. So you can support each other, if anything.
You say that, and yesterday I had a similar conversation with a CEO, and he said the same thing, that people have to realize that just because you get the role, or just because you happen to be that kind of top leader, everybody has that same feeling when they go into it. Oh my gosh, what have I taken on? And also, you don't know everything, and actually that's part of your learning, but a part of being part of a good team is to be open to, I don't know everything, and my team has to fill in those gaps. And in that type of team, and actually that would be interesting to hear your thoughts. When you have a team in that environment, it's probably even more so important to be open to challenging each other, but also not taking that personally. Is that true in that environment? And how do you do that? How do you take the emotion out of it when it's maybe something where it's your specialty too?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Especially when you work with teams that are across countries and they have different functions. And again, also generations are very different,
Yeah.
because they may be, when you work in a corporate environment, they are, first of all, customers coming from all over the world. So first of all, you need to understand, to tune in into their way of communicating, because a customer that is coming from the Middle East, for example, would have an approach which is completely different from a customer coming from Europe. So that's the main thing. You have to be very, very open and tolerant about way of approaching people in a different way. And this happens also in the team that you have. I work with teams where you can have the undergraduates, and then you can have the person that has been there for the past 40 years
Yeah.
and has probably, the age of your dad. So you have to be able to communicate effectively and also honestly with all of them. So my key to this is that I love honest communication. Like, the all manipulative kind of stuff for management, they really don't work. So I prefer to show my pain points, to show my vulnerability to them, so that they feel comfortable with me when something isn't working during a project. And we have a team and we have to deliver by that time, with that cost and that budget, and we have to report it to the space agency. I want anyone that works in my team to feel comfortable to tell me, I didn't make it because of this. I didn't have the time. I was having a problem. There was an issue. I feel more comfortable if they tell me that, rather than telling me, not answering because they are intimidated, or, because in this way, if you tell them what is your vulnerable point, they feel comfortable, and also you
Yeah.
can find a solution together. If I don't know what's going on in their mind or why they are not able to deliver, I will never know how to help them. And the other way around, because clearly you can also be helped by many other people in your team. It's not because you are a leader that you don't need help from the other people. If anything, this is empowering each other to meet the common goal.
Right. And so you have that team. It sounded like you really had that team when you were doing the Mars piece. Um, how did that feel for you? Because that's got to be a pretty cool thing. Like, anybody who hears that you're involved in a project like that, first of all, probably thinks wow, that's really cool. I'm sure being in it is even more cool. But what was that like when you see it kind of come to fruition at the end as well?
So when I saw the landing in November 2018,
Yeah.
and I wasn't in Berlin anymore, so I couldn't be with my team at the time.
Yeah.
I was in London, they were in Berlin, some of them were in New York. I cried,
Yeah.
literally. I cried the whole evening. I was there shaking, feeling like, oh my God, this happened. Also because there are those 7 minutes before the landing, which are called the 7 terror minutes, where you don't know what's going to happen. It either goes well and it lands properly, or it goes to this, to complete disaster. And you never know. You've been working on that project for who knows how many years, and then it can never land. And when it landed, I truly cried. I was like, okay, now even if my career stops tomorrow, I've seen it. It was there. Now it's on Mars. It's working, and I'm like, okay, done. Check.
Yeah, it's the 7 minute thing is pretty, like that's what you see in the movies. That's what you see in all of those things, is that dramatic pause beforehand. But that must feel like, for some people, that's a life's work that is sitting in the balance for 7 minutes, and you don't know which way it's going to go. It's
Yeah, yeah.
such a dramatic
It's
point.
it is, and yeah, I wish that everyone that does work on such big projects can really feel those tears of joy, because that's probably the best thing. That it's really like a baby coming. it's
Yeah, yeah,
you've poured all your life and passion and so many other people together, and then yeah, it happens.
very
So
cool, very
it's
cool.
it's in those moments when you think, I've proved everyone wrong.
Yeah, yeah. What a banner thing to show to all those people that told you couldn't do it not too long ago. So, um, with young girls then who are thinking that they want to maybe take a similar track, you know, do you have, because you're, I'm sure, looked at as a mentor for them. Did you have somebody like that in your progression, or have you had to kind of just take it from different people as you went along? Like, have you had a mentor that you followed through your career so far?
I didn't really have one specific person, but as I was saying, throughout my career and also having lived in 3 different countries in the span of 7 years, I've taken from many people, from my colleagues that were way more experienced than me. I will look up to them and I will learn, really, even through their struggles, on their advice. I will take on any experience that they were doing, and I will try to get a lesson learned from there. And also, I may be biased, but obviously the best mentor for me has been my mom throughout our life. So I've seen her growing up, 2 children, becoming successful both in business, in life, whatever. And she's gone through so many struggles, and I've never seen her backing up ever. So that was for me a major drive, and it was just in my family. But even now, even today, the new people that I'm meeting, new business partners that I'm having, and now irrespective of female or male, I'm always learning something from them. And if I want to know something, because I'm really struggle with developing a new skill, for example, or I'm struggling with a problem with the team or a project, I would go and really ask them, how did you tackle this? So mentors could be anyone, could be even your best friends. They could teach you anything. That in that moment, they have so many different perspectives, that they could look at your problems from a different way, and they could tell you, well, actually, did you consider the other path? And then you think, oh wow, I've never thought about it that way, and they solve your problems.
Yeah,
So this is how I've gathered all
yeah.
this multiple inputs
Well,
throughout
and
my career.
even as you said, Google is your friend. I mean, there are so many opportunities now that young people, or just generally people, can look at, where they can get access to some of those people, even just through seeing videos, seeing content, things like that, that you may not have had not too long ago, and actually have mentors without ever meeting them, which is kind of cool too.
Exactly. Even LinkedIn has as a platform, or and
Yeah,
now Instagram is becoming, for the science communicator, as I do, is becoming an
yeah,
amazing platform where I get girls from everywhere in the world asking me, how should I get that internship? How should I get that job?
yeah,
And you can be so approachable and actually tell them, do this, do that, and
yeah.
let's see how it goes. It's that easy.
Well, and what a cool way to be able to connect it, because the one thing that may be difficult is people to have that projection of, really, what do you do and how does it affect what is my everyday life, and even making the connection around Instagram and TikTok and all those things that are in, they are all made possible because of some of the work that people like you do.
Yeah, it's true. First of all, they are possible because there are space engineers making this possible. So
Yeah,
this is the coolest thing I always say, and people always they never think when going back to your first statement, it's not rocket science. So we are now having this conversation, and let's think that one of us is taking a picture and posting it on a social like Instagram or whatever. That is rocket science because we are using rocket science to do that. First of all. And then the second thing is that because we have so many platforms available, the one cool thing that it's very, very important is that these kind of professionals at every stage of their career, they are available. If you if you want to send them a message on LinkedIn, you may send a message to 10 people and you may get one reply. That one reply could be, breakthrough in your life, can give you the job that you were looking for or the advice that you needed for a project. So always ask, always reach out, because out of the many messages that you send, there could be that one person only that is really giving you what you needed at the time of your life stage, whatever that is. So it's extremely, extremely important. Never shy away from asking,
yeah,
because not asking is just not making yourself, yeah, not making yourself a favor. Just ask. There's
yeah, yeah.
no harm into asking.
Yeah, I mean, networking is as important or more important than it ever was. Even though there's technology, it's now instead it's just facilitated through technology and gives you more opportunity. Now, I looked back and I just wanted to make sure I got the quote right. I think this is your quote where it's rocket scientists looking like our daughters will become the norm, and I think that's awesome. And what we ask usually for every guest is two or three things that people can do kind of right away to move things forward, and we'll kind of bump off of that statement is that if if we generally wanted to help young women see STEM roles or roles like yours as more of an option, are there a couple of things that you think we could go out and do right away, very actionable steps?
Uh, First of all, as you know, I started with the push and sponsorship of my parents. I think it's very, very important for parents and friends to realize what your closest ones want to do. And if you are a parent who you're telling your kids, no, you can't do that because you don't look like a rocket scientist, that's wrong. So we should stop this kind of things. That's the very first thing that we should stop as parents, as partners or whatever. If anyone has a dream, let's just not torn that dream apart before it's even started. Another thing that we can possibly do, as I said, if any young girl wants to learn about pro- projects or careers into STEM, science, technology, engineering, reaching out to a platform, as I was saying, it's extremely important. So
Yeah.
just giving them the tool or one link to a YouTube channel that is talking about women in engineering, just one video could really change their mindset. And it is extremely important to change the mindset first of all, because again, stereotypes and all these kind of
Hmm.
things. And another thing is just the third one is very, very important, is to understand that as women and as men also, especially young girls, it doesn't mean that you will not have a social life because you are getting into that engineering. So if you are an attractive woman and they are telling you you don't look like a rocket scientist, it doesn't matter. That's why rocket science is looking at our daughters will become the norm, because there will be a day in which you go on with your life, you are passionate about something, you are passionate about the work that you do, yet you can have friends, you can go out, you can have a beautiful traveling life and looking like a rocket scientist. So three main points: parents and friends being supportive and enabling them to have the tools to even see, this podcast is an amazing example. They could learn from my story or all the other ones and see, actually, I can do that. And the third one, just saying that we as scientists, we are all normal people. We are all normal people that just had the passion for that specific project. We are not just smarter or better than anyone else. We just like what we do and we do it with passion. So you can be a normal person, a normal girl, having your girlfriends around, go to parties and still making spacecraft.
I think that's a great message for people, and it's just and then that's why at the start of this we talked about how it makes I think you do a great job making it very relatable, and I think that's important is how do you make those roles and make that um, make sure that we're not systemically putting in barriers before things even start. So I think that's fantastic. If people want to follow you or follow what you're doing, do you have? I know you have a website, a couple other things. Are there a couple of ways you that are
Yeah,
best to do that?
yeah, exactly. So I have my website, which is biancacefalo.com. So it's exactly my first name, second name.com, where I have a couple of speaking engagements that I've done and all the pictures and all the events that I'm still doing, and also all my other socials, which is LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. So if they go on that one, they can find everything that they could possibly find to reach out to me on any platform that they prefer, because maybe younger kids will prefer Instagram, professionals will prefer LinkedIn. So there is everything out there. And if you want to just drop me a message to ask me, what do you think about, me getting into this kind of job or whatever, I could even ping you to the right people. I may not have the answers, but I may know people that can help you.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you very much for that, and we'll make sure on the show notes that we have the links for those as well. So if people are trying to get in touch with you, then and follow your work, then we'll do that. If you haven't already hit subscribe on the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to this or watching this on, make sure you hit subscribe because we do continue to have awesome guests every week. I guess first of all, thank you very much, Bianca. That was great, and I know that it will make a big difference for a lot of people. So hopefully we can do this again sometime because I think there were tons of things that I would continue to ask as we go forward. So hopefully we can do that again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right, and we'll talk again to everybody else on Big Idea, Big Moves.